Development Corporation to be held on July 24th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. at the East Mezzanine of City Hall, 72 West College Avenue, San Angelo, Texas, for the purpose of considering the following agenda items. Number 1, meeting is hereby called to order. Number 2, invocation. If you'll bow with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today and thank you for the many blessings you bestow upon us in this fine community. Guide us this morning in our deliberations, that we may do things that bring honor and glory to you. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Number 3, public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The board takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Do we have any public comment this morning? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the number 4, the consent agenda. A, consider approving the regular meeting minutes from the June 26, 2024 meeting. B, consider approving the necessary corporation disbursement.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you by Director Mantooth. Second? Second by Director Puelo. Yes, I'm spitting it out, Rick. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. Now we move to item 5, regular agenda, and we're going to start with consider approving the June 2024 financials. Presentation made by Tina Dursky, Director of Finance. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning, Board. Tina Dursky, Corporate Treasurer and Director of Finance for the City of San Angelo. Thank you. We'll start out presenting your third quarter financial statements. Sales tax was up in June almost 6.5%, but then it took a downturn in July. It was down about 4.5%. A large majority of that was due to an audit adjustment. If not for the audit adjustment, it would have actually been down 0.8%. So that helps a little bit. We're still over our budget for sales tax revenue by about $700,000. And moving on to your balance sheet for the economic development side, continue to keep as much as possible in investments and make that money work for us as we monitor cash flow needs. Right now, there's approximately $6.8 million in your unassigned fund balance. And in the revenue and expenditure report, sales tax up at 80%. We did have some expenditures paid out for the city service and staff contract, as well as for the chamber contract, and there was a $300,000 payment that went out for Skyline project. Okay. And on the ballot side, again, just monitoring cash flows and investments, and you have about $9.7 million in your unassigned fund balance for the ballot side. And then again, on the revenue and expenditure report, same for sales tax, up at 80%. Year to date, when we're 75% through the year, and there was a payment that went out for affordable housing this month, $65,000. Other than that, we just have your disbursements in detail. So if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Tina, I've got a couple of questions. It's probably just clarification. Going back to the economic development, the revenue and expenditure report.
Okay.
There's a line item on there for advertising. 52, almost 52.5 on there.
I'm going to have to defer probably to Nora, but I think that's the media advantage, the advertising.
Okay, so that is a contract because it is encumbered. So that was going to be my question. Okay.
That would be why, yes, sir.
Okay. And then going through the projects, this is probably an ignorant question on my part, but you see a lot of zeros over there on the right-hand side. And then you can go to that following page and see the remaining allocations and what's been expended as of today. Is there any sort of process that we have for time frame or expiration date of these funds if some of these projects have been, or entities have been allocated funds but no longer need them, or has there been conversations with some of these entities that we no longer need these, so we can get these
Yeah.
off the books?
Yeah, good question. We review these financial statements every month before we put them on the agenda with staff in the Economic Development Corporation. And we ask those questions of Bob and Nora. Where are we with these projects? Why aren't we making any expenditures? Have you talked with the folks with the agreements? And Bob follows up on that. And usually, I think it's March timeframe is when they kind of start turning in information reports and things like that. And so in the months following that, we kind of try to clean up and remove projects if they're no longer feasible or whatever. So, yeah.
Okay.
We do look at that regularly.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all I've got for that one.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate that.
welcome. Any other questions?
No other questions. Entertain a motion to approve the financials as presented.
So moved.
First motion by Director Mahaffey and seconded by Director Puelo. All those in favor say aye.
Dr. Jones, if we could take public comment on this.
Oh, we
one,
do
too.
have to take public comment. That's my mistake. Thank you. Do you have any public comment on the financials? Okay, thank you, Brandon. So all those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
Stands
you.
approved. Thank you, Tina. I move to regular agenda item 5B, discussion and possible action regarding an agreement between Media Advantage and COSA DC for professional services to secure webmaster services not to exceed $40,000, to create a new ED website, to include an annual budget of $6,000 for an annual support plan, and authorizing the board president or their designee to execute all necessary documents and recommending city council approval. Presentation made by Michael Dane, interim director of economic development.
Good morning, Michael Dane, Interim Director of Economic Development. We started a presentation last month about rebuilding the COSA DC website. We ran into technical difficulty when we couldn't get the presenter slides to work, so we want to continue that conversation, reopen that conversation now. And so with that in mind, I'll invite somebody from Media Advantage to come forward.
Good morning, gentlemen. Chris Forbes with Media Advantage and Nora. Let's see if
morning.
I can start this presentation. So last time I got to just talk a little bit about why and how we got here, and I think we all agreed that we were looking at a new site. We need a new site. We did go through and look at some different partners that we could partner with and why we chose this one and the cost of it. So let's kind of dive into these slides and look, who's our target audience. We're looking for people who are going to look at our website. We've identified that here. The things that really need to happen for our website, one of the main ones is the ADA compliance. And then we want to bring in some tools. We really looked at our competitors, everyone else's websites, and we've got to bring ours up significantly to be competitive, looking at Abilene, looking at Frisco, looking at cities that others would look at as well with these things included. The vendor we're going to talk about today, the one that we recommend, is really going through Media Advantage, letting us put this together for you guys, manage it, deal with it on a day-to-day basis. That's what we want to do for you. These are the things that are going to be included in that, and we can get in a little more detail. You've all seen these slides. You've got them ahead of time and been able to look through them. So I thought I'd get through them all, and then we can come back and ask questions. Is that okay? Okay. A little bit of the process and how we're going to do this. There's going to be some onboarding, discovery. There's going to be some design. We've listed out some things specifically that you're going to get within each of these elements. Timeline. This is kind of how we break it up, how much time it's going to take to get these things done. We've already put in a lot of work to get to this point too. And
Bruce, where are we in the timeline?
We're about into this discovery part of it. We have taken your existing website and done everything we can to it by now, stretched your dollars as much as we could. We've done all that we can with it as it is right now. And so it's time. I think it's been 7 years since you've done a redesign. And so with, of course, all the new technology, all the new things, the back end and all that, SEO, the things that you need some guts redone. And so this is what we're going to do. It's going to completely redo the inside of the site. Did I go backwards? Okay, so I want to show you some examples of what the vendor has done before. And I want to tell you too that this vendor is an expert at economic development websites. And so that's who we really want to help us with this. Here's one site that they've built themselves, and this is going to be compared to what we're going to have for San Angelo. This is just kind of the home page, scrolling through what it might look like. And of course, we're going to tailor ours to our city. Have you all seen our website recently? Been able to log in and kind of see what we have now? I'm sure you have. It's the first thing that people see, I think, when they're considering San Angelo, and they log in and they look and Google us and jump into economic development. So we really want to put our best foot forward and look amazing and beautiful. So that's what we're going to help do. Okay. We thought it was important to just kind of show you really where we started. We started at the top. We wanted to get the best what's out there. And so looking at this price quote, the initial quote was $80,000. It definitely kind of blew our socks off in the beginning. We dove in and really looked at everything that it does. This site, I think, is just from what we have right now to jumping into this. It may be overkill. Maybe it's too much for us to kind of deal with. A site, a city like, and there's an example of Seattle, bigger city, Dallas. They're going to have more visitors, more things that they need living on the site. When we get this recommended site, if you guys approve that today, there's going to be a lot of tools that we need to learn ourselves and implement too on the back end that's going to help with your visitors and how to redirect them and the things that a website should have that are not being utilized right now. And so we want to be able to learn those tools, teach those tools, really utilize them before you jump into this other website that has the things that we're not using. So that is a big differentiator as well. And also, this was going to take a year to build, and we want to try to launch this in January for you. So that was kind of another thing that just turned us off on that. There was some, of course, I wanted to include some examples, but I think we'll skim past these with all that said, and can definitely go back to it if you have some questions. So to wrap it up, here was kind of the difference in each of these. I think I've hit on all of that for y'all. Is that my last one? Yes. Okay. Can I answer any questions?
I do. Who's the inside vendor?
Who's the inside vendor?
Yes.
The name of them is ED Suites.
Okay. Now, do y'all engage them and they handle the website? Because I'm understanding this is a rebuild, not a refresh.
Correct. A rebuild,
Okay.
not a refresh.
And we're looking at SEO versus paid, and there's organic searches and LSA searches. But because people are looking at San Angelo, we're really focused on the organic searching, correct? We're not looking for paid clicks.
Not with this, no. So that's going to be part of your media, like your advertising budget if we did something like that.
And what's the cost from the inside vendor? Because I know y'all have a fee that y'all have
Sure.
with y'all's work.
Our fee is, we have a little bit of a breakdown in it. So our fee for the 6 months that it's going to take to build the site is $5,000. Oh, okay. You have my copy.
So, good morning, Andy Markey with Media Advantage. So this project is anticipated to take 5 months. So our fee reflects a monthly fee of project management. It does also include potential graphic design that we're going to have to do to support the efforts of our webmaster. ED Suite is 17 years in the business serving EDOs, as well as have won 26 awards through the IEDC, and they've launched over 200 websites regarding economic development, city government, and so we feel as a trusted vendor for us that they would be vital to this website. Can we do this website without their help? Yes, but due to a small staff and just the capacity of support that staff is able to give, and then obviously we want best practices from other EDs across the U.S. ED Suite can offer that to us and give us the best recommendations, as well as use our expertise to enhance the design and other things needed for this new website.
Does part of the fee include them making any recommendations, adjustments that y'all may have, edits that you may have as you go? Is that included in this price, or does anytime you change something on the website, are they going to shoot you in the bill, or is that part of the budget?
So this will get us our initial build. It'll also include, in a year from now, we'll redo the homepage, so we'll refreshen that up. Something.
No, that's not.
That's not part of it?
No, we didn't go with that. That was too expensive. But it does
Okay.
include support, and Media Advantage will be able to log into the back end and make any website edits moving forward. Another feature that this is going to have that we don't have is that it can have our minutes, our board meeting minutes, and all of our board information on it, and that's something that's currently only on the city's website. And so if that's something that we want to add to our own website, that's a new feature that we'll have with this vendor.
Where is ED Suite headquartered?
I don't know the answer to that.
Are they national or international?
They're national.
Okay.
I've actually, the vice president of the company has been on the phone with us several times just to check in on the research of the project. We've been researching this project for about 6 months now. We were hoping to get this conversation started in the summer, but we're here now, late summer, early summer, and so they have been a really great partner, just providing information that you guys, might need for this conversation today.
But as far as going back and trying to add more, to design more, it's not finished, this is your final cost to get the website completely done.
As you see on the back of that page, we did add a little bit of a cushion. It's not a large cushion, but we feel, with the great photography that Brian Groves does for the city, we can utilize a lot of those assets, as well as assets that we have, assets that the Chamber ED has invested in, and then we've just invested in some video ourselves. We'll have enough of the creative part of it, which are the visuals, which, as you guys saw in those examples, are a very big piece of the look of the website. So we felt that we didn't really need to allocate budget to photography, but just in case we had a little cushion there, and then just in case our scope for our website went over a little bit, we wanted to have that, I think it's like a $3,000 or $4,000 just little cushion that we could tap into if needed.
Rick, it looks like they're out of Longview.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, they're out of Longview.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, have y'all engaged this inside vendor previously? You've worked with them before, or no?
No.
No, they're just really specialized in economic development, so you guys are the cherries on that one.
They did just finish, I believe, Abilene's Chamber of Commerce website.
And that's what you showed us earlier?
I think that was one,
It's in there.
Yeah,
one of the
it's one of those
examples. We
that-
wanted to show a city that was very similar to ours. It wasn't their economic development website, it's their chamber. Each website is custom too. There won't be a same design used.
Okay.
Obviously, if you're gonna use local assets, the local features, local structures, and
Yes.
Other questions for Media Advantage from the board?
So this is a one-time cost of roughly 40 and then 6,000 per year to maintain?
Correct. That is a required support. The items that come with that support are listed. In addition to that, as the marketing vendor for Costa DC, Media Advantage is there to make monthly updates. There's all kinds of things that Nora asks us to update on a regular basis, and so we'll be able to make those updates. We also have all control of the back end. So if we wanted to replace images, if we wanted to do a refresh in a year, like Chris mentioned, we could do that on our own. Now, also, we own this design and this website. So if we decided that we did not want ED Suite to host it any longer or to have the support that's listed, then we could give them our notice and we could have the website and host it in a different way,
That's
which was
important.
very important.
Sure.
Okay, Brandon, would we need to take public comment?
Yes, if you want to take action on it, you'll need to take public comment. And I kind of have a legal question on this. Is there any term on y'all's agreement with the vendor where you have to have it for 3 years or anything like that? Because I don't think we proposed that in this, so I just want to be clear on if there is, we address it.
So Brandon, I have not seen the actual vendor agreement between us and ED Suite. So what we can do is send that for your review if you'd like. I do know they're going to require half up front, and they do require a contract. They are nervous that we don't have necessarily a director in place. In their past experience, they have had new directors come in and just, not love everything they've done, and we need to start over. But I've reassured them that this isn't the case, and that if that does happen, then obviously we'll pay for the additional time needed to make those adjustments. But we've been delaying this project for too long, and so we really think that this could potentially help get a new director if that was something we chose to do. So the contract between us and that vendor will have language in there that requires us to follow our scope of work, and if those do change, costs could change. I verbally asked them, is this our website? Can we leave in a year if we want to? And I was told yes. Now, I haven't seen that in writing yet, so we'll confirm that that's there before we enter into a legal agreement.
yeah, I think it's important because I know they do operate in 1, 2, 3-year contracts. They have evergreen contracts. If you don't timely cancel, provide proper notice in writing.
Correct.
All that comes with it. I just rebuilt our website with an outside vendor and from a previous vendor, so I understand the concepts, not all the details, but the concepts, so.
Yeah, we're hyper aware of that as well. We've built and managed many websites. We've built websites in-house. We've used a local vendor, MediaJaw. We've used a national vendor as well in website building, and completely agree that there are, hidden things that happen. Mostly people not owning the domain, we're tricking you into a 3-year support plan, you can never leave, those things like that. We are hyper aware, and we'll make sure that we don't enter into that on behalf of Costa DC.
And obviously, I agree, we should own the assets and all the domain names and
Yeah,
everything that comes with it,
absolutely.
because that does cost. If you have to rebuild or enter into with another vendor, you have to pay for it all over again, as opposed to owning it. I forgot the term, the technical term, it may be press or something
Well, the
to that
WordPress
effect.
is the
WordPress,
coding
correct.
and how it's built on the back end.
So,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
A moment ago, you said between the vendor and us, I believe was the terms that you used. Is the contract going to be between you and the vendor or between COSA DC and the vendor?
It will be between Media Advantage and the vendor.
All right, and our contract will be.
Correct. We have a contract in place with COSA DC already. And so what this would do is we would just add an additional statement of work with what we agree to today or in the future, and that'll be part of our agreement, and we take on responsibility for this vendor.
Okay, then who would own the website?
COSA DC.
Okay.
So the proposal is for one-time expense of $40,000 and an ongoing expense of $6,000 a year as long as y'all continue to use the inside vendor, correct?
Correct. We're willing to transfer that if anything changes with us as a vendor. Tina mentioned our marketing budget earlier, but that's because of a carryover of a surplus. We have a very limited marketing budget, an annual marketing budget, and so we really did not want that annual $6,000 fee to come out of our annual budget, and so that's why we're asking for additional approval on that.
So should it be the case that you reach a point where you deem it best course of action to disentangle yourselves from ED Suite, would your firm take over the support that is being provided by them?
Correct. We would take over the hosting as well as the support. Now, there are some proprietary tools that they provide that'll be on the website that we will have to investigate further if we take that over, just, renewing licenses and things like that. But also, those proprietary things could be replaced with something that, just a widget that offers the same functionality.
Understand. So the financial commitment from the corporation's point of view would be an initial $40,000 and then anticipating $6,000 a year for an unknown number of years.
Well, correct. Now, we recommend, Chris, you want to?
Yeah, to keep us out of where we are right now, not competitive at all, website's 7 years old. I mean, in 3 to 5 years, we're going to revisit this. Let's look at our competitors again. What do we need to do? Update this one, or something totally new has come out, we need to revisit it. So, I mean, something that we want to keep up with.
One of the things I think you should ask, especially if you enter into a longer-term contract with ED Suite, if it's approved, is a refresh, because I know these vendors will offer refreshes for free or a very minimal cost, because they already have everything in place. That's a question to ask, because I know.
So Carlos,
again,
I can actually answer that question
Okay.
and give you a cost on that. So we did explore that, and that was something that Mr. Dane and Media Advantage were very excited about, and we were going to bring to this board for approval. But after evaluating the cost, which was going to be $8,500 a year in addition, and that was going to give us a new homepage refresh in 4 years. We calculated the investment and felt that it was literally another $30,000. And so we could just, with that money, build a new website. Now, do we think in 3 to 5 years we're going to need a $40,000 investment? Maybe not. But we definitely, with the website and the internet, things, get updated, and you can just tell when you look at a website the age of it. And so we just really, to Chris's point, don't want to get into this where we're not proud of how we're presented online.
So Brandon, are there problems if the corporation decided to approve the expenditure of $40,000 and then an ongoing expense of $6,000? Are there any difficulties with us obligating ourselves for that for an indefinite number of years?
I mean, I think I wouldn't do indefinite. I think we need to
Need to
nail
pin that
down a
down
term,
and
like
say
3 to
3
5
years
years,
or
whatever.
5 years, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. And so that all of that would be spelled out in the prospective addition to the current contract we have with Media Advantage, correct?
Right. I mean, I think we could do it either way, as an amendment to that contract or a standalone agreement, however we want to do that. But also, as to the term, we could put some additional options to extend it in there that's just in favor of the corporation. So a base term of, say, 3 years, if everything's going good, we have the option to renew it, and it's just a simple rent notice to them to extend it.
Okay.
And since it was mentioned, I just want to say, you know, Carlos, your point of this is just your base. We're not reaching out and targeting anybody else at all. So I don't think we want to discuss a number or anything as far as that goes, but once this site is built, it might be something we want to add to it. Do you want to push this out and kind of have other people looking at it? So that's a different budget. That's something totally
Right.
different that could come lader.
Yeah, that's not
Just
web
wanna say
design,
that.
that's more
No.
marketing, like you're saying. I understand that.
Are you managing any other websites for anybody else who would be in competition with COSA DC?
No. You know, in the project, once this project gets started, Media Advantage will be meeting with the vendor weekly. There will be, you know, hundreds of hours spent making sure that this website represents San Angelo, represents what we want it to see. We'll also engage Michael Looney and Mike Berry, you know, as the salespeople for economic development. We really want them to have a really big part of this website as well.
So I'll go ahead and ask, have we vetted all local companies to determine this scope cannot be handled to the quality that you guys are expecting? And
Correct. We love working with our local vendor, and he's amazing. And he is capable of building this website. Where we see the value is the experience that this vendor offers in economic development. That's the extra.
So without having the specific language for that contract, would be in a position to take any action today?
Yeah, I think you could take action, and the way you could do the motion is that the board president can negotiate and execute the contract documents so that we can nail all those things down.
Can we do that at this level, or do we need to get approval from council?
Because of the amount, council will also have to approve this agreement, yeah.
All right.
But it would start with our committing to it here today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, floor is open for anyone on the board that wishes to make a motion along the lines of what Brandon has suggested.
I'll go ahead and make that motion. I think this is a direction we need to move. You know, this is kind of our front porch to what we're doing, and I think we need a good presence. I totally agree with concept, but again, to Dr. Jones's point, I think we need to nail down contract terms, but motion to move forward with this with the understanding that you'll negotiate the terms for us.
Okay, motion been made by Director Mahaffey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Spano. Opportunity for public comment. Okay, any public comment on this topic? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ladies. Next item on the agenda, item C, 5C, public hearing in accordance with section 505.159 of the Texas Local Government Code regarding an economic development incentive agreement with Talka Texas Brands, Inc. in the amount of $100,000, a project authorized under chapters 501 and 505 of the Texas Development Corporation Act, necessary to promote economic development and expand business enterprises which create or retain primary jobs. Presentation will be made by Robert Schneeman, Economic Development Project Manager. Bob, good morning.
Good morning. Bob Schneeman, Economic Development Project Manager. As the board is aware, but just for public information, before we undertake any project, the section 505.159 of the Texas Local Government Code requires that we do hold a public hearing prior to expending any funds on a project. So this, in effect, is the public hearing, an opportunity for the public to comment on this project. The project itself is, the company itself has 10 full-time employees, and seasonal employees range between currently they have 55 and they go up to 70. They actually have 70 slots. They have trouble filling them sometimes. Their average full-time wages are $49,000 per year. Average seasonal wages are $12.28 an hour, and they have a total payroll of about $1.5 million per year. The seasonal wages are sort of a base rate. They pay bonuses for just about everything. For longevity, they pay bonuses for basically even just showing up for work. So they've got people, seasonal workers that are making in the neighborhood of $20 an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course it would. The company is proposing a capital investment of $450,000 to update some of their equipment and also add some equipment. They have a current appraised value of just business personal property of $968,000. Their current real property value is at $1.4 million, so about $2.3 million in total assets. We are proposing, and the board has approved at the last meeting, a capital investment incentive of $100,000. And as a part of that, they must retain all their current full-time and seasonal positions. The return on investment for continued operation is about 22.1%, and the payback is about 4.3 years. They have a total economic impact over a 5-year period of $288,000, including this capital investment incentive. At this time, I'll entertain any questions, or you can open it up for a public hearing.
Any questions? Okay, now make the available for any comments from the public. Okay, hearing none, I guess that completes the process, Brandon? Okay, thank you, Bob. And now we move to item 5D on the regular agenda, consideration and possible action regarding the sale of approximately 17.611 acres plus or minus in the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park Phase 1 to LTG Real Estate Group, LLC, at a price of $25,000 per acre, the exact acreage and total price to be determined by a survey on the ground, and authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute all necessary documents. Again, presentation by Bob Sneeman.
Thank you again. The proposed property is shown here, the 17.6 plus or minus acres. It is virtually the next to last piece that we have available in Phase 1 of the industrial park. The only other parcel then available is the 7 acres towards the top of the screen there. They are proposing, LTG Real Estate Group is proposing a purchase price of $25,000 per acre. That would make the total price in the neighborhood of $440,000, depending on the actual acreage once the property's been surveyed. We have a January 2024 appraisal value for Phase 2 of $48,000 per acre. That is based on a number of factors that really don't apply to this property in particular. For historic purposes, we have been selling Phase 1 for $25,000 per acre for 5 acres and above, pretty much since we started. There's a number of reasons why staff is recommending that the board consider this at a lower price than that 48,000 per acre. There are construction costs associated with this site that would not normally be experienced by any of the sites in Phase 2. It has some topographic issues. It will require on-site detention, stormwater detention, which is not required in Phase 2. The total cost of improvements, and this is based on an engineer's preliminary design, is $832,000 roughly. That includes a turn lane. I'll get into some of those improvements in just a minute. But that, if you include those construction costs, that brings this price up to $47,000 per acre, the $25,000 plus the additional costs to bring the site up to a buildable site. And that does not include the actual cost of fill on the site and bringing the pad and everything up to a buildable elevation. And it also is worth noting that 2 prospective buyers have optioned out of purchasing this site, one being Warren Caterpillar, who are located at the site now. Engineering cost estimate, engineering cost is $48,500, mobilization $35,000. The loop turn lane was going to cost about $110,000. The entrance off of FM 380, another $208,000. Some drainage channel and improvements of $400,000. That brings that total cost to the $392,000 we talked about. I'm just going to go through these very quickly. This is a drawing of the proposed turn lane. And there are issues with a turn lane into the property because it fronts on the frontage road for for Loop 306. And TxDOT has some pretty stringent requirements on what you can do there. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that there is an on-ramp to the loop right there. This is just another view of that turn lane. And then finally, this is the entrance off of FM 380, and you can see there's a significant amount of fill required just to make that driveway work. So staff is recommending approval of this purchase at the proposed price because we feel that those additional costs bring this up in line with what the appraisal for Phase 2 says. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Are we ready for action?
I believe we are.
I would move approval of the sale of the land as presented by staff.
Second.
So motion by Director Mantooth, seconded by Director Spano. Opportunity for public comment at this moment. Okay, hearing none then, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very
Bob.
much.
We now turn to item 5E on the regular agenda, discussion and direction on affordable housing issues associated with program management of the Affordable Housing Assistance Program. This presentation be made by Bob Solis, Director of Neighborhood and Family Services. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Board. As a reminder, excuse me, here's a quick overview of the AHAP. The annual allocation of $335,000 goes to gap financing for first-time home buyers to meet the low mod income limits set by HUD. However, the board has the authority to approve different activities based on besides gap financing, including rehabs and rentals. Excuse me. As we discussed last month's board meeting, we are proposing to transfer management of the AHAP to Galilee CDC. This allows Galilee to manage the real estate transactions, not only to create and enforce real estate legal documents, but to recapture forfeited funds. The board and Galilee would enter into a subrecipient agreement and that outlines the roles and responsibilities of each organization, and it would be overseen by my staff. Galilee would require a 5% administration fee annually, which amounts to about $16,000. And of course, the board would approve the program guidelines that directs management of the activities. And we are proposing to amend those guidelines. Short history of the previous guideline revisions. Created in 2008, it included gap financing capped at $40,000. Then in 2014, we included $5,000 for lot purchase. Excuse me. As prices began to soar across the nation, we increased the gap to $50,000 and then lot purchase to $15,000. So that's where we are right now. As we discussed previously, we are proposing to add other activities to the program. One of them is housing rehabilitation, which includes exterior repairs and renovation of siding, exterior paint, roofs, windows, and exterior doors. We are considering the limited landscaping as well, things like old trees that have to come down. We have a big problem with that. It's expensive to take a tree down, so we would try to consider something like that. It would be a deferred loan up to $20,000 forgiven monthly in equal amounts based on affordability period set by HUD for 5 years for less than $15,000 and 10 years for more than $15,000. That gives us control of the program of each project to ensure that they meet the criteria that HUD has set. And we're considering multifamily projects as well, because the projects in this category would be very unique and limited and will affect the annual budget. We propose that my staff review and submit projects to the board for approval. Projects would be limited to available funding, and all tenants must meet income eligibility. And my staff would be the one that would monitor compliance for that. Like I said, it would not happen too often. So I think the board would be, it's important for the board to consider each project as they come forward. Now, if the board agrees with the transfer, we'll come back with a draft subrecipient agreement and the amended guidelines at the same time for your approval. And we're thinking of considering starting October the 1st of this year. So we'll be glad to answer any questions and we ask for your direction.
How will this affect our funding levels?
Well, the 335 stays at 335, no matter what. How we manage that 335 is kind of up to the board and our staff. So that wouldn't change.
The administrative fee of $16,000 would come out of the 335.
So wouldn't it?
The administrative fee of $16,000 would come out of the 335?
It could. Right now, we have, my staff gets $30,000 a year or so. Some of that, right now, we still need some of that funding, at least for the next year, to kind of finish up some things. It's part of our program. Our admin's already allocated, so we don't want to change that for the next year because then we have to go to HUD for changes and all that. And then we still have to kind of follow we have to manage the old projects to completion. So there's going to be some work for my staff still. And as we transition and things work out and start settling down, some of that $30,000, which is not part of the 335, would probably go towards that administration fee. So reduce my staff, give it to Galilee. That's be kind of like the long-term thought on that.
Well, without being rude or too cold, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with some of that might come out. I'd rather be a lot more firm about where that 17.5? 16, where that will come from and how it would reduce what we're paying your staff currently and when. I'd rather have a more firm plan.
The first year, it wouldn't change. It would come from 335. For the 335, it would affect a project or so. Okay? Then after that, it would change and amend towards, based on the workload for my staff, and hopefully, probably we could probably go half and half on that, split that 30,000.
So Brandon, this is on the ballot side, correct? And does the ballot specify the 335 and the $30,000 both?
I was just pulling that up. So all it says is the use of sales and use tax proceeds for continued development and expansion of affordable housing for a period of 30 years at its current allocation. So it
And that
doesn't.
current allocation is 335 plus 30?
No.
Tina can speak to that.
There are separate line items in the ballot fund for the 30,135 for affordable housing admin, and then the remainder of 304,865 is used for the affordable housing program.
Okay,
So the 30,000 already currently comes out of the 335.
Oh, it does?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is there leeway for the board to allocate an increased amount out of the ballot side to cover the administrative fee for Galilee?
No. And in fact, I mean, if we do an additional amount or an additional affordable housing project, I mean, I think we actually have to go through the whole project process like you saw today, the public hearing, and I mean, that would be a whole separate deal.
Let me give a different answer if I could. Yes, there is latitude for the board to alter the amount provided for administration. It comes out of the 335. It reduces the amount available for projects. And so I think the observation that I'm not sure who pointed that out, I'd like that firmed up, even though we're in transition. I think that's a great request, and I think we bring that back to you when we bring the final analysis, and we figure out how we're going to allocate that admin, A, in transition, and B, in the longer term, in the out years, if that's different than what, if we anticipate, I would anticipate that there would be some larger burden associated with transition, but then a smoother flow of work in the out years. So I could see a little bump in the first year associated with getting through the transition, but in the out years, I would expect it to be that transitional burden shouldn't exist and should be smoother. So I like the request of let's firm that up, and the idea that administering the housing program is a housing program expense, and so that should come from a 335 the way it's set up now, and I think that's very doable. We've got two skilled administrators here, and I think we can work that out and firm that up when we bring something for final approval.
Yeah, let me make it clear that I'm happy with the proposal. I think it makes a lot of sense what you're proposing in the long run, but how do we get there from here is something I'd like to explore a little bit.
Tina, can you clarify for me on the ballot side, under affordable housing expenditures, there's a line item, administrative contract for 12405. What is that exactly?
Where are you looking? I'm sorry. 124.
Page 20.
That's saying, maybe that's the staff services contract. And I'm not absolutely positive, but I can look at that
Okay.
and get back to you.
Because it fell under that affordable housing, so I was curious if that was,
It's either that or it's the buildup of the 30,000 year over year.
okay.
I'll look at that. I'll get back to you.
I would be interested in hearing from Mrs. Hamby about how they feel about this proposed change, if she's interested.
Hello. Stephanie Hamby, Executive Director of Galilee CDC. We are excited about this. We have a lot going on in terms of the city and what we are doing. The AHAP program has been managed by us for years, I think. We've just closed house number 75 for that program with you guys, so it's been very successful. The problem we're running into, and one of the reasons we're looking at making the changes, is because the interest rate is making it harder to qualify a lot of our low-income residents for loans because they just can't afford a 7-8% interest rate at this point. So qualifications, clients are down, and so this year we're only going to close 2 houses through this program. Not for lack of trying or anything, it's just interest rate and where we find ourselves. So that opened the opportunity for us to start looking at other ways to create and maintain affordable housing in the community. So we run 5 remodel programs right now, so adding this into it actually is beneficial. It gives us a little more ability to do some more things. We actually could use, with your approval, some of this funds as matching grants to other home repairs, so that instead of a $15,000 grant, you know, we can say, well, we have this money from COSA DC, so we'll get that $15,000, and it just kind of adds to it. So it allows us to grow it a little bit more. We have a little more flexibility, so we're excited for that. We actually have a multifamily rental project we're working on right now for 8 units. So that would be a great fit under this as well, that would allow us to just kind of close the funding gap. We've raised almost $800,000 in grants for that, so most of it is fully funded. So there's just different options, and we're excited to see what else we can do with the community, because we get a lot of phone calls of people with plumbing issues, water leaks. It allows us to work with the water department, stuff like that, and try to tackle these issues quickly without having a huge overhead that you guys don't have the flexibility, and Bob doesn't have the flexibility sometimes that we have. So we're excited to see what we can do with this. And I think you'll see a huge increase in what we're able to do with this money in more ways than just single housing construction. So we're excited. And it won't take any additional staff on our side to add this into what we do now. So
I just want to add, I don't know if y'all remember when we brought all those that were defaulted. Stephanie was a huge help in that, because she has relationships with the homeowners and the lenders, and so I think she's well positioned to take this on, at least from my perspective, when I was trying to work through it. So
thank you. And we will leave all the existing liens in your name. We aren't going backwards and taking any of those over. It's just starting October 1st, I think, forward, any new homes. And we'll still build new homes, but it may be at 2 or 3 a year instead of the 5 or 6 we were doing. And so at that point, then we become, if I'm discussion right, we become the lien holder for your gap financing money. So it does keep you out of the legality side of it a little bit.
So for all the old ones, like if there is a default on an old loan, y'all may still see that come up to the board, because those are all documents that are recorded with the county, and I mean, we're under those documents, so.
Is there precedent for this sort of a relationship with a local nonprofit under this program in other communities? See Bob nodding yes.
Oh, I have no idea.
The answer is yes. They currently are CHODO, and they have agreements with us. We have subscription agreements with Galilee and other nonprofits to carry on projects and programs. So yes, absolutely. It's other cities do it. It's smooth transactions, smooth relationships, workable relationships. So yeah, there is precedence.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Hamby, for your comments. So would we need to see some more specificity about the nature of the relationship in order to be able to take action?
Yeah, so there's no action today. If there's direction for staff to move forward with it, I think we'll bring the guideline changes.
We'll bring the draft subrecipient agreement to you, and then we'll also bring the amended guidelines at the same time. So you will approve the guidelines and the subrecipient agreement and the guidelines at the same time. Those guidelines are important because they guide the management of those activities. And that's where you have that control over that. You can tell them exactly what you need to do, okay?
Okay.
So that'll be the next, it'll be hopefully before October the 1st.
Thank you, Bob.
Just comments. I'm a huge proponent of this. I think Stephanie and her group does a fantastic job with what they do. I would just say that I think as long as there's good constant communication, yeah, I'm definitely in favor.
Yeah. Now, my staff would still be your conduit. We would still be the ones that you would refer to for the program. We would be monitoring what they do. We do that already with other programs, so it's just right up our alley.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
And even though there's no action, we do need public comment still.
Oh, we do. Okay. Now open for public comment on this agenda item. Okay, hearing none, we'll move to item F under number 5, presentation and discussion regarding improvements to the Bill Aylor Senior Memorial River Stage, presentation to be made by Carl White, Director of Parks and Recreation. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning. So for this item, we're looking for direction as well, how to proceed. For the last several years, city staff, the Civic Events Advisory Board, and City Council have talked about doing improvements to the Bill Aylor Memorial River Stage. That what those improvements are have kind of evolved throughout the last few years, and we've finally, with the direction from City Council, to develop plans for those improvements, and with direction to move forward with the project. We've got the final packages, 2 packages, Phase 1 and Phase 2, and we're at the point where we're making sure we have all the funding before we move forward with the project. So a quick orientation about the site. I think most of us know where it is, but in case anybody watching doesn't know, the river stage is down on the North Concho River, just south of downtown, in between Chapman Street and Oak Street, near the municipal pool and the San Angelo Museum of Fine Arts. The main improvements we'd like to do, we need to improve accessibility to the venue, to the river stage itself, and to the grounds. We also need to make the venue more usable and enjoyable by our patrons, and also make the river stage more functional, the building itself, to host those performances, the backstage elements. This is our river stage, well loved, a little bit used, a little bit tired, and needing some improvements. As y'all know, it's a coveted location in the region. Most folks would love to have this facility at this location. It's an awesome location. I'll go through, there's several slides, I'll go through them as quickly as I can, talking about the different improvements. This first slide shows a little more detail about the building, the structure itself, and some of the improvements. I don't think this has a laser pointer, but if you see where the letter A is, that vertical line just to the left of the letter A, going back all the way to the letter D, I know I can point on here, but not on here. That's where the existing structure is. What would be added to the structure is where the letter C is and a canopy at letter D. So on the back, and the building itself.
Sorry to interrupt you. Push and hold that one.
Okay. There we go. To the building itself. This is the new storage area. That doesn't work for this slide. New storage area. The existing storage area is smaller, and it's where the letters A, B, and G are on the diagram. And a new storage area, expanded storage area, new, more usable storage area, and then going to the right. A is a production office for promoters, basically so they can have an office space backstage, close to the artist, close to all the elements of the stage to host their events. And then G is a small storage area. B is additional expanded green room for the performers. That's H, sorry. H is the existing green room, which would be improved a little bit. E is restrooms, existing restrooms that would be renovated and improved and made more accessible. Talking about doing some improvements to the partition that's back beside and behind the stage. And then on the other side, H is an existing green room. H is a renovated restroom. J is the mechanical area. And then D is a new covered dock. You know, most the events have to pull in back up to this dock, which currently isn't covered, to protect all the equipment to unload and load up. Looking at the overall site, I'll go through all the different improvements as quickly as I can. One thing we know we need to do is improve accessibility to the grounds. Really, you can't get more than just past this point in terms of accessibility. And as you all know from different performances, the accessible viewing location has always been over here for a lot of the bigger performances. So we want to improve that. Improve accessibility to the stage itself, improve accessibility in the restrooms, and other improvements, as we talked about, renovation to the building itself, expand the seating that exists on the grounds and these darker lines on both sides. Add some irrigation. Now in phase one, the irrigation would basically be quick couplers to which we could plug in and water the grounds, which we can't currently do now. Phase two would have a full bore irrigation system, and that's partly because phase two includes some work on the grounds that would disturb an irrigation system if we installed it in phase one. But phase one would allow us to water the grounds, keep the grass green and the stickers away, hopefully. Phase one would include, well, we're looking at expanding the ticketing area at the current main entrance here. So it would include basically doubling the size of the ticket box building / concession area. The ticket box is in the front, concessions is in the back. It expands this plaza area, covers the entrance of it, so it makes a more prominent entrance to the river stage from the east side. And then adding multiple locations, primarily the utilities, adding outlets so we could set up different locations for smaller concession stands. One here, one up here, and then there will also be concession areas. Well, maybe on the next slide. Okay, one thing about accessibility is that this main walkway that goes down to the lower area, it's primarily already there. It may need some minor tweaks to it, but it's on the wrong side of the fence. So we're gonna have to move the fence to the opposite side. New bathroom buildings. So one here, this is the current restrooms. This would be an additional one. And here's a new one with a concession. And then this is going into phase two, a new entrance from the south along the pool property from above going down. And that includes developing the shared use space up here by the pool and adding digital signage to that's Avenue N on the bottom, as well as a new ticketing office down there. So looking kind of at how we separated this into phases, the green is phase one and the gold is phase two. Phase one includes, currently what we're looking at doing, phase one includes the box office, concessions, addition, the doubling of the existing building, the new plaza entry, relocating the fence for the walkway going down. It includes a shade canopy, and we kind of debated whether we put this in phase one or phase two, but we decided on phase one, mainly because we want to enhance the comfort of the patrons who come to the performances. So this would be a large, like barrel vault shade canopy that covers the entire lower area, and then it has sails that come up to cover the first tiered area. A good thing is that the post would be designed and installed such that you could expand those cells going back to the last tiered area if you had the funding to do so. In the first phase, we're looking at just doing this portion of the shading. And an important thing just to point out is it's kind of hard to see, but the line of sight. So from the very top, you still have a line of sight all the way to the top of the stage and to the bottom of the stage. Now, there are going to be a few poles that hold up some of those sails in the main structure. We'll have a blocking line of sight there, but you may just have to shift your head over to look. Phase one, so what we're looking in this package, again, to continue is the remodeling of the existing restrooms, primarily addressing ADA issues, additional storage, bigger storage, the production office, the structure itself improvements, the new loading dock and the canopy at the loading dock, the expanded seating, a flagstone area in between the upper and middle seating areas, new concession areas, improving the access for trucks, buses to get to the rear stage. That's one of the main complaints we have is from promoters is getting down with their big trucks to the backstage. A little bit a way to water the grounds, shade canopy, some sewer line work, some electrical work, the main shade canopy, lighting for the canopy, repainting all the surfaces, and then the ramps to the stage itself. And the total cost for phase one, as you see here, is about $2.5 million plus contingency, plus all the fees for design, contractor, all the permits, $250,000 for a total of a little over $3 million. Currently, we've rounded up. We've identified $3.4 million, and we're short about $700,000 to do the project that we're looking at doing. To get back into the budget, we could remove the shade canopy, but we thought it important to include in this first phase. But we've got a lot of the other improvements that we need to do, the accessibility, improving the structure itself with all the backstage elements, and improving the seating for our patrons. So this is the reason why we packaged it this way. So phase two would be, once we've successfully done these improvements, continued on with those improvements, would include the large structure at the bottom with restrooms and concessions, a new lift station, other paving work, the new entrance from Avenue N, and that project also is about $3 million. I think that's it. So we're looking for any discussion, any input you have on these improvements, and any direction you'd give to staff before we proceed to go to City Council for allocating the funds.
Carl, are you aware of other similar outdoor venues like this that have employed those shade canopies, and how has that worked out?
Altor is our construction manager who helps us facilitate projects.
Good morning, Al Torres, construction manager. In researching canopies, this company that I'm working with in particular, USA Shade, they gave me a lot of examples of other outdoor amphitheaters, venues that they've provided these for. So yes.
So what's the expected lifespan of those?
Officially, about 15 years. He says it kind of depends on the conditions. Sometimes it lasts 20, 25 years. Some of that, of course, I've asked questions about hail, the West Texas sun, things like that. I think the sun is more of an issue. The hail could be an issue, but there are warranties in place too that'll help replace them due to storm damage. But we can expect to have to replace those again 15, 20 years from now. And the majority of the cost is in the structure. the sail part is not as expensive as the structure, so we're not looking at nearly, the $1 million to replace the sails. I think, off the top of my head, I think it'd probably be like 20% of that for the sails themselves.
So it's similar to what you would see at some of the car lots?
Yes, yes. And you see it in smaller examples too. The new splash pad that we have has a
That's some
nice
sense.
canopy shade that they just built with that.
Are there issues associated with having birds congregate on the structure, so that the people who are sitting under there get?
Probably not,
hit?
not on the sail part, but on the barrel vault. Those are trusses under there, so there could be some issues. They're primarily along the edges of the canopy, so that could be something that we could, there's methods you can employ to kind of discourage that. The little spike, anti-nesting things that you can put up there. But along the edges of that structure, yes, that could be an issue.
So, assuming that you're able to attain all the funding you need for phase one, how soon would you start that?
We are almost ready to go out for bids. I mean, probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll be, I'm reviewing the final set that the engineers just sent me. So assuming that's all correct, I just need to wrap up mine based on what they just gave me. I'm doing the architectural portion. We had the engineering contracted out. So once it all comes together, I think I can start getting ready to take it out for bids in a couple of weeks.
So in a best case scenario, when would phase one be completed, and how soon would you be interested in starting phase two?
If we can get it, again, we can start the bid process in a couple of weeks. We are the end of July, so probably the first or the middle of September, hopefully we would start construction. And I'm guessing 6 months of construction time. So what does it work out to?
The answer to the part of your question about interest in phase two is one that will be answered by politicians, not by staff.
Oh, are you asking about phase two?
Yeah, I'm saying, let's say you get the money to do phase one, you finish phase one by whatever, March.
Yeah, late spring or early summer of next year. And again, we haven't even started. I mean, other than doing some conceptual drawings, which you saw Carl present, we haven't started designing or anything on phase two.
So all the available resources you've been able to marshal are being dedicated towards phase one at this time?
That's correct.
So so you've got some fund balance and other one-time monies that you're putting into phase one. Those monies would likely not be available for phase two, correct?
I'll let Tina and Carl answer that. Or Carl.
Yes, that would pretty much expend the resources on phase one. So the interest would be a direction for city council for phase two when, depending on the funding. But I would think it would be a few years afterwards if they could marshal the funding.
During construction, does this take the river stage offline?
For the most part, yes. And we're looking to do the project hopefully starting this fall when it's the least active, basically from November till early spring. But I think to some degree, depending on where we are in the project, we could accommodate some events.
Carl, would you please put a slide up for what you want approved? What is phase one? You have a listing for phase one?
Yes.
Can we see that slide?
What do you want?
It's over several slides. He wants a visual of what phase one shows.
Oh, just the improvements. Carl can't hear.
Or anything, that one?
That one. Phase one is in green. So the expanded seating, the plaza work, the expanded concession ticket booth, improvements to the building itself, accessibility down, improvements to the roadway coming down, the shade structure, the mini concession areas. I didn't really mention it too much, but in the middle of the green is a patio flagstone area in between those two tiers. Currently, it's grass.
One of the things that one of our board members has experience in is the Civic Events Board. Steve was on that board and I think chaired that board for a while and dealt with the difficulties associated with managing events, stimulating more events, that kind of thing. So I think Steve's opinion about how these efforts address difficulties they've had, I think is important.
And this will probably go back to the funding slide, but to echo what you're saying, I'm a huge advocate of this. There were a lot of hurdles that were there to bring in events. There were a lot of folks that turned us down at times, and so the question was asked, well, what's it going to take to bring in these bigger concerts, these bigger events? You know, this is one of the biggest assets this town has, one of many, but one of the biggest ones we have. And so that was a discussion that we had, was how do we generate more revenue? How do we bring more people to town? How do we put more heads in beds? So yes, to echo what you said, I'm a huge advocate of this. The funding was always the issue on a lot of this, and that's where I have some questions today. You had mentioned that you have funding secured for a portion, but not all. You're lacking 700,000. Can you clarify where those other funding sources are coming from that you've secured so far?
About half of it is coming from the Civic Events Fund balance. So $165,000 we will request to use the facility use fee funds that City Council has set aside within the Civic Events Fund. And then we're issuing a short-term debt issue in August, and we've allocated almost $1.2 million from that as well.
And that will be paid from Fund 410, the Civic Events Fund?
Well, the debt part will go into a separate debt fund because it has to by law, but we will pay for part of the project with those proceeds.
But the debt will be serviced by general fund money, right?
That's correct. The general fund will be backing that debt issue.
That debt service won't come from occupancy tax or from civic events.
It'll come from the INS fund.
Probably,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so one of my questions would be, is there any funding coming from Fund 605? That's the hotel
No, we've been
occupancy tax.
advised by city attorney that we cannot use hotel tax for the River Stage because it's considered a performing arts venue, and we're limited on how much we can use for the arts.
I mean, I've got some comments on that. Not sure if this is the time or place, but I'm a firm believer of taking care of our own. You know, our taxpayers expect quality venues here. You know, so for some of those funds to go to outside organizations, I mean, I have my opinion on that. I feel like it should stay within our venues. I feel like Fund 605 could be, being that it has a $3.2 million fund balance, I feel like that could be a good source.
And we did use $700,000 of hotel tax at the convention center, which freed up the $700,000 we're using out of the Civic Events Fund's fund balance to be able to do this project.
Go ahead.
Just a question. I've been there, several performances, and I'm just curious with the sound system there. When performances are there, do they bring their own equipment, or do we have permanent equipment there?
Yes, they bring their own equipment.
Okay. Would that be something? And I don't know about putting venues or whatever, but would that be something to consider, whether in phase 1 or 2, to have maybe permanent equipment there? Would that be something that would attract people instead of hauling their own equipment, or dealing with the acoustics and all of that? Or was that any advantage to having equipment there or not?
I think when we got into that, the rate of the return is, not everybody uses it. Not all events would use sound system, and they particularly like their own sound system that they bring in that they like. And there's no liability on Carl and his folks to maintain that equipment outdoors. So the rate of return wasn't there.
Okay.
Max, if you will, let me echo what Steve said. The vast majority of performing artists want to have their own control over their own equipment and know exactly what it's going to sound like and how it's going to be operated. And for us to provide that equipment would take that away from them. And so that would be a hindrance rather than a help.
Perfect. Okay.
A question quickly, Carl. The canopies, there are pros and cons to having canopies. Part of the appeal of an outdoor event or an outdoor venue is to have the sky. Now, the good thing is you get rid of the sun, the heat, the rain, all of that is no longer an issue. But the downside of it is you no longer have the stars, the open sky, and all of that. Are these canopies convertible, or once they're there and can't bring them down?
Once they're there, they're pretty much there.
Okay.
It would be easier to kind of remove the sails, but still, they're not designed to be removed and put back on.
And you're comfortable with having the permanent shade?
Yes, I mean, it gets hot and sunny down there, and it's uncomfortable.
Except at
I mean, if
night.
you really want to see the sky, you can get out from under that shaded portion to see it. And one of the questions that came up was, would you still be able to see the fireworks? And we're pretty sure that you can, because they're off kind of at the side and at an angle. But yes, that is a consideration.
Carl, let me ask regarding the canopies, how does it affect the experience of patrons or visitors who are further back, not under the shade? I understand from the top you can see to the bottom of the shade, but how does it affect the folks who are closer down, not in the shade, but
They're still within that range of being able to see both top and the bottom of the stage, but you still have some of the poles you would have to look around if.
And my question is not regarding the poles. It's regarding the shade itself, because it's an elevated viewing venue. So the shades, how high do they go, and will they affect people who are lower down near the shades? Because the shades aren't going to go all the way up to the top, correct?
That's a good question, and this is a good slide to show that cross-section there is cut through that hill, so you can see the main barrel vault and then the sails that extend out over that first row of seats. There is another row of seats that's going to be outside the sails, but again, they're within that viewing cone that you can easily still see the stage. They won't be under the shade, under the sails. They'll be just like they are now. But you can still see the stage just fine.
And how tall are these? I can't see the.
Yeah, I think 18 feet or something is at the end. I'm going by memory. Again, they calculated what's the minimum height to be able to see from the top of the hill.
Okay.
And I think it was like 18 feet.
So theoretically, the shades shouldn't affect viewing.
Correct.
Based on that diagram that you're pointing out there.
Correct. And if at some point in the future, like Carl said, if we want to come back and add more sails over that third row, they would, again, just have to be tall enough to clear. Because the base is going up, the height to the bottom of the sail is less, but it would have to be high enough to clear that visual cone. So we'll take that into account.
Yeah, I'm for it. I think shade's important, but I don't want to affect the patrons who aren't.
And to expand on your question earlier, Rick, we are working with Sid. He's given us a list of concert dates, and we'll make sure we work with the contractor to work around any major ones that happen. That most of the work being done to the river stage itself, I think we can kind of clean it up and work around any performances going on. Tearing up the hillside, that's the stuff that we need to do now this fall and spring. I mean, it's fall and winter, which is his downtime. We need to get that done during that period. So hopefully we'll avoid overlapping or interrupting any performances that he has.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
So, from the board's point of view, this would be a quality of life type project rather than economic development project?
I think it'd be a lot like the splash pad, a park recreation type facility. So it's one that doesn't require like a job creation retention. It's not really an incentive. We'd still have a agreement with the city for construction and then the funding if y'all choose to do that. So.
In this, we kind of ran all the numbers every direction. And it was the economic impact, the sales tax increase, folks coming in from out of town, just concerts that we have that come in now, the people that we generate from all over the state and out of state that come into these concerts. And so we had that in mind as well, is the increase, to sales tax that's going to come in from these folks purchasing fuel, eating before the concert, those things. So there's a lot of variables that came into this on the return of making this investment. So yes, quality of life, but I do believe it does generate quite a bit of return as well.
We wouldn't have to consider those the same way we would like a Taste of Texas or something.
No. And really, the scope that Carl and Al presented is not set in stone. But as they're working through this project, everybody says, what about shade? What about shade? And so shade clearly is important. In the fullness of the phasing of this, shade is important. So the question is, if we're going to do phase one, why wouldn't at least some shade be part of phase one? We haven't heard anybody say they thought shade was a bad idea. And so the question is, what is the most effective way to manage this venue for the best reasonable benefit we can get for our citizens? And so we thought that the initial shade discussion actually didn't provide full shade to all the concrete at the lowest level. And we thought that's, if we're going to do that, we probably need to make sure we've got a reasonable amount of shade if we're going to spend the money. And so that initial canopy was expanded to include what we thought would be the best benefit. And so that did increase the price. So again, this project scope is not set in stone. In fact, they talked about another phase for shade in the next phase. And we knew Steve had that experience on civic events, and we thought we'd just bring it to the board and see what the board thought. Where does the board see the value? And so, to sum up, this is a concept discussion. There's no action here. If the board says, we love it, we'll bring something back for action. But if the board has concerns about, oh, that's too much shade, or we don't like shade, we need to hear that.
Well, and I'll say, do we have kind of a ballpark of what the expense for the shade would be? Like what percent of it, if we're looking at $3 million, are we looking at 30,000 or 100,000? What are we looking at with that, part one? And then part two is, usually events that I've attended there, over the years, usually have been early morning or evenings if they're concerts anyway. And yeah, shade, we always want shade in West Texas, right? But would that really benefit, I guess, maybe, Steve, to your point, I guess if there's shade, maybe that'll stimulate more events during the day when we don't have them, because we do limit them, I would think, in the morning or in the evening because of the lack of shade. But do we really need it if the venue, if the concert's going to be happening, usually in the evening, I would think. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know the schedule. But I'm for, the concept and the improvements. I think it's needed. I have kind of mixed feelings about the shade as well. To Rick's point, part of the experience is being out there. And yeah, if it rains a little, that's part of the experience. I've been to great concerts that I've gotten rained on. It's just part of the experience. So I don't know.
Max, what you would open up for is all-day and half-day festivals that we currently cannot do because they are not going to come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But some of the opportunities for not just musical festivals, but art festivals and other things that require stage and gathering areas would no longer be out of the question.
And I think it does increase the value of those seating areas as well. When we took that in consideration, it becomes a more premium seating, which could generate more dollars for preserved seating events. And, like I said, there's a lot of variables that go into it. But like I said, I'm a huge advocate of this project. We did all the research on it, determined it was a good process to go through, a good exercise, and it was something that we would have liked to move forward on. My opinion which is only one on this board, I feel like we need to do a little more digging into pencil to paper and share some of these costs. You know, you had mentioned that, I guess this is deemed a performing arts center.
Yeah, I haven't researched and or been part of those discussions, so I can certainly do that and talk to the city attorney and see where the basis of that opinion came from.
Yeah, because, you know, the tax code 351 allows 15% to go to the arts. And so, you know, if that means that we need to put more into this and less into some other things, I think that just needs to be a bigger discussion. Like I said, I'm a huge proponent of this. I'll preface all my comments with I'm a huge supporter of this. I just feel like there should be some of the shared cost with some other funds as well that we can utilize and not. I assume you're asking this board for 700,000 total or part of or
We're asking for direction.
direction. That would be my opinion for whatever it's worth.
And do you have like a ballpark of what the cost of the shade would be as part of
Yes,
that?
it's a fairly big ticket item. The layout that you saw is 1.2 million plus 150,000 to add the lighting underneath the canopy.
So if we didn't have shade, then this cost of the project would be almost reduced in half?
Yes, shade is in this phase one,
Okay.
as it's currently structured.
Okay.
How much was the lighting again?
150,000 underneath the canopy.
Okay. Thank you.
What was the direction?
Okay, so I think direction is the board has some interest in this, would like to see some greater detail with regard to the breaking out of the cost and also an investigation into what opportunities there are for funding from some other sources.
The answer for the funding is occupancy tax is out. That's a legal opinion, and that's solid at this point. Tapping occupancy tax for this beyond the mechanisms that have already been utilized is out. That was an early driver on this. There was a lot of time spent between Tina and Teresa.
I'm all for using a hotel tax.
We do
Go
have a
through it,
breakdown.
Carl. If you got the detail for the project, go through it.
Yeah, I just thought it was maybe too much detail, but I don't have a copy of it.
Go through it.
Okay.
Let them have it.
It's one pager. That's a lot to go through. So phase one, box office concession addition, 72,000. The entry canopy, 40,000. This is the eastern entrance. New paving and relocate fencing at Plaza, 75,000. New handicap elevated platforms, 20,000. Relocate fencing for ADA access, 25,000. Relocate west side fencing, 25,000. Demolition, 30,000. Remodel existing restrooms to address ADA issues, 21,000. Storage dressing room addition, 225,000. Add production office, remodel interior, 169,800. 2 new concrete ramps and stairs for the stage itself, 22,000. Painting and involved surfaces, 60,000. New loading dock and canopies, 40,000. Extend the hillside seating, 42,000. New stamped concrete, is that 95,000? The new concession setup areas. Gotta make sure I'm reading the right line. That's the 40. That's 43,200. Irrigation, the quick couplers, 55,000. Sewer line work, 30,000. Electrical, 20,000. Address the drive issues, 34,000. Plus 60,000. The canopy, 1.2 million, and the lighting, 150,000. And then contingency, 240. All the fees, permits, contractor, 250,000. And we can make a copy of this and provide it.
I think we do want to circulate that, get a copy of that out to the board members. I mean, if they think they're going to want to think about it and bring it back in a month, I think we want to give them that. I think further to talk about occupancy tax, as I recall, that 15% allowance for arts excludes capital. Is that correct?
I'm pretty sure I just forwarded the email from Teresa to Brandon, so you can look at what her opinion was.
Okay. But we can dig that. I think that was the hang up there, that
I think
50.
it's art venues.
Art venues.
That's the terminology she used.
So again, we're looking for direction. Do you want to see this again? Do you feel good enough about it? You want to see it again? How would you like to see this move?
I'd like to bring it back to us with the details that we've been questioning. I would also like to know, generally what is on the non-ballot available funds to us.
Well, she gave us that earlier, the
Yeah.
unassigned fund balance on the.
Future projects line?
Right.
I think
Tina,
it's
would you just
1.9 million, but I can,
back up the slides to your presentation?
well, that's the unassigned fund balance, but they also have future projects in the current budget that's available. Am I going the right direction here?
You are. We're getting vertigo, but you're getting there. Yeah, there
There
you
you
go.
go. Unassigned fund balance of almost $6.8 million, but again, there is monies available in the current budget and the future projects line. I think it's about 1.9 million.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so-
What we'll do is we'll circulate Carl's list that breaks out kind of the detail of the contemplated scope. And we're available to meet or to discuss any aspect that you'd like. And hearing your interest in seeing this again next time, we'll put it on the agenda next time and plan to give you the option for action at that point.
Thank you.
Good, that sounds good. Any other comment on this agenda item? Thank you, Carl. Now move to agenda item 6, follow-up and administrative issues. A, consideration and possible action of the items discussed in closed session if needed. There were none. 6B, announcement and consideration of future agenda items. Anyone want to suggest anything other than what we've already talked about for future agenda items?
I have one. Bob, one of the things Bob does is inspects projects. And he tells me that the Skyline facility is moving along nicely. And I'm not sure when they're going to have a ribbon cutting or an open house, but I think that date is fast approaching. So keep that in mind. And if you get a tickler in the email for would you like to be there, we'd sure like you to be part of that event if and when it happens. And
Yeah, they're probably about a month out. They ran into some problems with the parking lot, but they're probably a month or maybe a little less than a month out.
Well, I'd like for the board to have the opportunity to attend that as soon as y'all have some information on that. I think that's a pretty big project that they've done.
And then just a question, just as I'm thinking about it for Nora, with the business plan competition, what's the deadline on that again? What do we?
So the deadline for those wanting to participate in the competition is August 1st by 5 p.m.
Okay.
So they had to submit that business overview and the application with the ASUSBDC's website, and that's where they can submit it.
Okay. Then I would suggest then for the next meeting, if it's not already an item, that we probably want an update on how that's coming along and how many people have submitted and so forth to that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Good point. Okay. Any other suggestions for future agenda items?
There is a grand opening or a ribbon cutting tomorrow for the splash pad. Am I remembering that correctly?
The one at Unidad at 10 a.m., yes. And that is not the one that we provided funding for. We provided funding for the second one, which will be located at Kirby Park. Correct, Carl?
correct. And the draft MOU arrived in my inbox last night, and so we're nearing the point of having an agreement on that.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, item 7 for adjournment, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion made by Director Puelo, seconded by Director Mantut. All those in favor say aye.
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 We stand adjourned.